Okay. All right. Um, if you are a person or a spirit who has passed, and you have a lot of knowledge about God, and you now or recently understand that you have never connected to it emotionally,
Yep.
but you would like to experiment it in the same manner as which Mary had channeled earlier,
Yep.
is there something else that someone can do to be able to connect with God and grow this as more of a feeling as opposed to an intellectual understanding?
Well, it's a good question because many Christians who pass and many people on the planet who have a feeling that God, a thought that God exists, only do a lot of their stuff with regard to God because of family-based issues or society-based issues. And many of them don't have a real connection with God that comes from their heart. And so what I would suggest to those people is that they first need to look at the reasons why they have heard about God all of their life, but still don't really have a feeling that God exists or not. And a lot of the times, the reasons for such things are to do with anger and rage about God, or anger and rage about what their parents have dumped on them about God. And that has caused them to have a feeling of disconnection from God, even though they've listened about God all the time. So we need to get very sincere with our emotions. So if we allow ourselves to feel about what we actually feel about God, rather than telling ourselves that we believe in God when our emotions are not engaged with that belief, then we'd be far better off in the process of experimenting with our relationship with God. So that's what I would recommend, that people start looking at their anger and rage and fear associated with God, rather than first try to manufacture a feeling of love for God when those feelings, anger, rage and fear, exist within them about God. Many of us who have been brought up religiously have huge fears about God, because we've been taught that God's going to punish us if we do something wrong, that God's going to, browbeat us into submission. Many of us have been taught that we're here on earth even for a test. It's just one great big long test that God's putting us through. Many of whom, much of the test which we're failing, we feel, or we feel that it's not fair that God has done this test of us, and all of these beliefs are incorrect, but they are beliefs that enter us from our religious history, and we need to allow ourselves to feel about them, because without feeling about them, it's highly unlikely that we'll actually end up having a feeling of longing for God's love, which is the transformational part of the progress. So we need to address those particular emotions. So the spirits who have had a history with religion but still do not have a feeling need to examine the reason why they don't have a feeling. And in most cases, they will find that they've only had a history religion because of the environmental pressure, or because of their fear that God might exist and will eventually punish them one day if they don't believe. And these kind of belief systems suppress their feelings for God as a result.
There's a lot of feeling around church and the church views
Yep.
and a lot of priest stuff. And it's like you know about God, so immediately your soul resonates because we have that innate understanding. But all of the programming that you have up until a certain point kind of denotes that. And
Yes.
anger and fear and God feel like two separate entities unless it has to do with punishment.
Yeah.
But there's like this real thing about I noticed for myself in visiting the hells in my sleep state
Yeah.
and communicating with some people about this,
Yeah.
and there's no God and there's nothing, and it's like psh, we used to believe in God but not anymore.
Yes.
And I don't know how to show them that it reflects my condition, of course, but
Yeah.
I'd like to be able to.
Can I illustrate why many arrive in the spirit world when they believe to be in God on earth, but they arrive in the spirit world in a dark condition, and then they no longer believe in God? Can I talk about why that's the case? The primary reason why that is the case is there are people on earth who believe in God, but they use God as a justification for evil deeds and evil desires. So in other words, many times, so if you look through the Dark Ages, for example, and look at what the Catholic Church did with with the Spanish Inquisition, just as an example. So there you have a church that states a belief in God and who's willing to enforce this belief in God on people, so much so that it's willing to murder many millions of people to force its belief. Now, the people who were engaged in doing that were willing to murder other of God's children. Now, in the process of murdering, their own soul condition becomes darker every single time. Dark, dark. Just even murdering one person, your soul becomes very dark. Imagine if you're murdering like thousands or hundreds of thousands, or torturing to death and murdering millions of people as an organised process. Then, of course, it was very, very dark condition of the soul. As a result of that, they arrive in the spirit world in the depths of the hells when they believed that they should arrive in heaven and be on Jesus' right hand, and so many of them instantly, as a result of that, no longer believe in God, that a God exists, because they have this self-righteous feeling that they did all of that for God's sake, right? Not understanding that true development is only about love. It's not about any religious philosophy that you may embrace and then push onto other people. It's about how much love you have for other people and how much love you demonstrate to other people. Now, if I demonstrate love for other people in an active way while I'm on earth, I will always arrive in the spirit world in a good condition. If I demonstrate a lot of hatred and other resentful type of emotions towards groups of people or other people on earth, I will always arrive in a bad condition in the spirit world, whether I had a belief in God or not. It's immaterial whether I had a belief in God or not as to what condition I will arrive in if I've embraced an unloving course of action while I'm on earth. So for that reason, there are many atheists who pass into a much better condition than many Christians, because those atheists are not condemning or attacking or actually using religion as a justification for violent acts. And so they arrive in a stronger condition of love, and therefore often arrive in a better condition than many spirits who believed in God while they were on earth. So that's very interesting, isn't it? You can have a belief that just touches your mind, but if love doesn't touch your heart in some point, it makes no difference. God's laws all operate upon love, not upon belief. And in a way, that's reassuring, isn't it? Don't you think? That all of God's laws operate on love and not belief? Because it doesn't matter if you haven't discovered the right beliefs yet. What matters is, have you discovered how to love yet? That's what matters.
It's very hard if you have never been shown love.
I can't agree with that, Marina. It gets said to me over and over again, and I cannot agree, because there is this underlying principle that I taught in the first century, which is an underlying principle I believe most people on earth want to forget, and that is this. If I do to you what I would like you to do to me, I will have a very good concept of love. But if I'm willing to do to you things that I would not be willing to accept you doing to me, then I have a very distorted concept of love. And the majority of people on this planet are not willing to look at what they do to other people, and therefore they have a very distorted look at love. And they don't ask themselves that one simple question: would I be happy doing what I do to somebody else if it was being done to me? And when we ask that question, then we understand love a lot better. And that's what I would call ethics. Most of us on earth have no ethics, right? We believe we should get away with what we do not allow another person to get away with, right? Now, if we had a true state of understanding of love of any type, we would at least know that particular one truth. Now, for many of us, we are totally willing to engage activity towards other people that we personally would not accept ourselves on the receiving end. And that tells us that that not understanding love is not the problem, but rather hypocrisy is our problem. All
I
right?
have to watch that one.
Does that make sense? So please be careful about saying, I don't know how to love, when it's a very simple question to ask yourself about love. And oftentimes we say that because our problem is not knowing or not knowing how to love, but rather our problem is hypocrisy. We're willing to allow ourselves to get away with murder while we don't allow other people to even say anything unnice that's not nice. Literally, we allow that to occur in many cases. And that's the problem that we face, I feel. So the problem is not a problem of knowing love or knowing what the loving course of action is. The problem is that we want to get away with unloving actions ourselves, but we're unwilling to let other people get away with anything. And that is our primary problem on the planet. That's what causes the majority of dark condition once a person passed. So, for example, if these religious Catholic inquisitors in the Dark Ages, in the 15th century and so forth, if they asked themselves the question, would they like to be racked and tortured to death? I can guarantee to you that every one of those would have said no to that question. They would not like it. And so therefore, it's very plain what their actions should have been. Does that make sense? But because they were unwilling and so much in denial that they're not willing to ask that particular question of themselves, they performed a lot of unloving acts, which now they want some kind of justification for, many of them. They want to go, but nobody told me. And I cannot agree, and God, by the way, does not agree with this nobody told me thing. Because the reaction is quite simple. Would you like it done to you? If you wouldn't like it done to you, then why are you doing it to somebody else? Very simple, isn't it? Very simple rule to live your life by. And if you can live your life by that rule, you'll pass in a much better condition, and you won't have engaged unloving actions while you're on earth or violent actions while you're on earth. Yep.
You've shown a lot of light to many people in the spirit world about that. There's a lot of denial
Yes.
about what love is and how it should be executed.
Yes. And the main reason why is because they do not want to come to terms with that one underlying truth, and that is how I treat you needs to be governed by how I'm willing to accept you treating me. And if all of us governed our life by that one principle, would anybody ever go to war? Would any of you ever participate in war if you governed your life by that one? Would you like to be shot? No. So, why would you want to shoot somebody else? Would you like to have a bomb dropped on you? No. So why would you like to drop a bomb on somebody else? Would you like to, would you like to be raped? So why rape somebody else? It just gets down to that single question of, would you like it done to you? If not, then why would you do it to another person? And if we ask that one simple question, we'll understand a lot about love in that one simple question. We'll understand a lot about how we should be acting towards other people. So how do you feel when somebody's demanding of your attention all the time, for example? How do you feel? After a while, you'll put up with it for a short period generally, and then after a while you feel like this isn't very nice. They're just demanding. So why would you then demand somebody else do the same for you? It's the same principle, but on an emotional level. And this is all we need to ask ourselves if we really want to bring ourselves into harmony with our actions, into harmony with love more. Yeah. And the reason why people are in the hells is because they have not asked themselves that one question, which is a question which is a normal question to ask. You think about it, a little tiny child, 2 years of age, has somebody come up and hit it, what's the first question it generally asks itself? Why did they do that? And if that's the question we normally ask, then surely we should ask that all of our lives. Why would we want to do that to somebody else? We hurt when that was done to us. Why would we want to do it to somebody else and hurt them in the same way? It's a very simple discussion, isn't it, then? A few months ago, I gave a talk in Melbourne in Australia on ethics and morality. And it's probably worth listening to that talk in terms of gaining a bit more insight about what are morals and what are ethics, and comparing the two in our lives and seeing the effect that it has on our soul. Yeah. It's good. Francis?